This video will contain spoilers from the off, so remember you've been warned. Titled International Break, this week's episode of Ted Lasso saw there be no league games taking place as several of the players were called up for international duty. However, there were more important things at hand, such as the idea of not letting something cause too much damage and trying your best to repair what damage had been caused. With Nate parting ways with West Ham for a reason that we didn't find out about and it impacting him mentally, Roy realizing that he hurt Keeley in the past, Rebecca coming to terms with the fact that she's not out of place and that she can move on from Rupert, and Sam also being left out of the international squad. So with that, let's recap, break down, and explain all that there was to take away from this episode. So let's get into it. Here is Ted Lasso Season 3 Episode 10, Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Now, this was definitely an episode that was wrapping up some loose ends, and it really did mark the beginning of the end of the show, which is sad to see. With most characters being involved in the ending of the episode, I'll break this down by each individual character and the journey that they had. Nate. This episode started in an abrupt way by planting the news on us that Nate Shelley had parted ways with West Ham, with there not being a definitive reason as to why, and even with Rupert not giving a clear reason why, it seems as though something must have gone on behind the scenes. I think that with Rupert having a new assistant and there being rumours about misconduct taking place, something could have happened there. We were slowly seeing Nate pull away from Rupert over the past few episodes, and this really needed to happen due to the change that Nate was undergoing in his mind. But I do hope that we get to find out why he decided to leave. Nate's departure from the club was something that was impacting him from a mental standpoint, and he was questioning his reason behind leaving and if it was the right choice. So much so that he ended up going back home to stay with his family whilst Jade was in Poland. This was what Nate needed for a couple of different reasons. The main reason he needed this was to remind himself who he was, ground himself, and to realize that he was still the Nate Shelley that he was when he was younger, when there were no worries and when everything seemed so inconsequential. Like he said about his violin, he enjoyed playing it, but he didn't want the pressure of it, and I think that's something that he realized in his mind about football. He enjoys the game, but the stress of it was just all too much. Especially with somebody like Rupert at the head of the table, the complete contrast to what it was like at AFC Richmond. We got a lovely moment between Nate and his father where his father apologized for the way that he treated Nate when he was younger, and he mentioned that he was only putting pressure upon him because he thought that it was the right thing to do, because Nate was a genius and he thought that that was what he needed. However, it wasn't. It was what ultimately caused Nate to feel as though there was no role model in his life. Right at the end of the episode, we saw that Nate, a person who had a newfound confidence and a new mindset that he'd been working on, snuck into AFC Richmond's ground and laid all of the kits out for Will, and he left a note to him, apologizing for the way that he treated him in the past, showing that Nate was well and truly on the right path and that he realized where he came from, rather than letting this wonder kid ego fill his mind. I feel with Nate on this path of redemption and with a lot more time to fill now that he's unemployed, my guess would be that we'll see Nate reach out to Ted or vice versa in the next episode, especially considering Ted was reading the article on Nate and taking some kind of interest. Rebecca. Rebecca had an extremely large involvement in this week's episode. We saw that she was meeting with Edwin Akufo, who was looking to create some kind of super league. This is something that is actually being faced in football, and it's something that many fans are strongly against, for a lot of the same reasons as Rebecca spoke about in her powerful speech. I think this is why that moment hit so hard and had a lot of importance around it, because by creating a league of elite teams, it does take the love, passion, accessibility, and history out of the sport, and it turns it more into a business. Rebecca has always had Rupert on her mind since her divorce happened, and a lot of what she has done has been in the act of revenge. However, within the most recent episode, she finally admitted that she was done with caring about what he thought about her, and wanting to get one up on him. This was after he made a pass at her after the meeting with Akufo. There was a poignant moment where she pulled out the green matchbook and also the green army man that Ted gave her. Ted gave her the figure to show his support and to show that she wasn't alone when it came to facing her issues. With us knowing the importance of the green matchbook and it representing something that is to come in the future, I believe the army man is there to represent the past, and that she's completed her battle with herself over what to think about Rupert. And the green matchbook represents her future with all of the positives that are to come. There was also a powerful moment that occurred with Rebecca during the meeting with Edwin and the rest of the owners of the clubs. Keeley's text message about prompting her to remember that they were all once little boys was something that worked for her, and it allowed her to feel as though she had a voice in a room where ordinarily it felt as though she didn't. The fact that her words also allowed the rest of the owners to pull out of the Super League, it showed that she triumphed in her attempt. Keeley. This was a really sad episode for Keeley, but I'm so glad that herself and Roy are finally back together. It's been 10 episodes in the making, but it finally happened, which is great. Jack Danvers may not be there anymore, but her actions are still being felt following her leaving, large actions as well. Danvers and the VCs pulled the funding from Keeley's company following the private video coming out, and we saw that Keeley was in pieces. She was ignoring Rebecca and keeping herself locked away, almost like what Nate was doing, but instead Keeley was in a pub. She had a somber mood until she spoke with May, and May uttered the line, "All that's left at the top of the mountain is lightning," which is something that I think resonated with her, as from that moment onwards we saw that she had her bounce back in her step. With the funding being pulled, it meant that she no longer had a job or a company, but Rebecca ended up putting her money into the company and supporting Keeley in her business ventures, showing that the lightning at the top of the mountain was a good thing, as it meant that Danvers was out of her life and Rebecca was now her boss, which is a much better scenario. Roy had a great inclusion in this week's episode. With it being Uncle's Day, we saw him being forced to wear tie-dye shirts, which is the least Roy Kent thing ever due to his niece Phoebe making them for him. Roy and Jamie are truly becoming best friends, and it's really nice to see. The two characters that once had a rift with each other have become friends that we never thought they would be. Roy's moment came in this episode when he spoke to Leanne Bowen, a teacher at the school, and she mentioned that Roy was a bit of a mess the last time that she saw him, and that she hoped that the mess didn't cause too much damage. This was an aha moment, where Roy realized that when he cut off Keeley, he didn't really think about her feelings and the pain that it would cause her. Hence why we saw him write a note for her expressing his feelings, and we ultimately saw that they spent some intimate time together after he apologized for all that he'd done, hopefully meaning that they are back together, because they do work extremely well together. Roy needed this moment, and I'm glad that he had it. It allowed him to take a look inwards and actually act upon it, rather than keeping it buried within. Overall review. I thought this episode of the show was a good one. It's a shame that there was barely any Ted in it, but all of the other characters had their interesting stories which we needed to focus on. There were quite a few emotional moments in it too, and I was surprised because I most certainly didn't expect it, mainly when Nate was playing the violin and when Rebecca was doing her speech. With the next episode looking like Jamie will be returning to the Etihad to face Manchester City, I feel this will be the game where all of Roy's training will hopefully pay off. I can't wait to see what's going to happen next, and hopefully we'll have more of a focus on Ted. So, there you have it. Ted Lasso Season 3 Episode 10, Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos such as Endings Explained, Theories and Predictions, and Character Breakdowns, then click on the I button. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @BrainPilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this episode? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.